Let me know when you guys are like out of a game. I'm gonna buy this Polonitsa Zarya because they were even like historically accurate with it. Historically accurate, just have to ignore the giant laser beam. Listen, we do not know of how long the Russians have had lasers. We don't know.
What an interesting time to join this conversation.
Hello, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Hello.
What up?
How goes?
If you've been following my channel at all, you'll know that I've been very vocal about my praises and often criticisms of Blizzard and Overwatch as a whole. In fact, I recently took a break from the game altogether for a number of reasons. But over the past couple of weeks, the devs have done some things that were unexpected and have actually brought me back to the game, albeit for maybe a short time. So this raises the question, is Overwatch still worth playing in 2021? Well, I'm Brad from Last Call Gaming, let's tap into it. This discussion has been on my mind for a couple of months, and I want to preface this video by saying that I do genuinely love Overwatch. It is by a wide margin one of my favorite first-person shooters of all time. It is, however, a little tricky for me to talk about. On the one hand, I love playing and streaming the game, and my Overwatch content does tend to perform better overall. On the other, the devs constantly make very questionable decisions that put the game into a very frustrating position balance-wise. This makes it a lot less fun to stream, and when you pair that with the recent news that Overwatch 2 is very delayed, it makes things a little touchy. To save some of you some time, the TLDR answer to my initial question is, if you have friends to play with and you're not trying to play competitive, Overwatch is still worth playing in 2021. But if you are planning on solo queuing ranked, just don't. It can be soul-crushing under some of the ongoing balance changes and community issues the game is facing, and it could ruin the fun aspect for you. So back in February, I put together a discussion panel to live react to BlizzCon Online and the Overwatch 2 coverage. I've linked that video up above if you want to check it out, and the footage in the background is taken directly from that stream. During the stream, my friends and I raved about how amazing Overwatch 2 looked, but were generally disappointed by the lack of release information and the complete absence of information regarding the support for Overwatch 1 in the interim. My biggest criticism at the time was that given all of the bad publicity going around, the number of content creators burning out on the game, and at the time, the absolutely abysmal balance state of the game, the devs were really going to have to step it up to keep people engaged in playing Overwatch 1 if they wanted people to be excited for Overwatch 2. It was around this time that I also stepped away from the game. I was also very burnt out and I didn't play for almost 2 months. And I wasn't the only one. A number of large streamers started leaving the game as well. But then in March of 2021, the Overwatch team did something fascinating and unexpected. They put together a panel of pros, streamers, content creators, commentators, and a developer to compile an experimental card that would be used for a community-balanced Overwatch tournament, and that very same card would be open to the entire community to test and play. The changes were brilliant, addressing many of the long-standing problems the community had with the balanced state of the game, and after playing the card myself for a week, it felt like the breath of fresh air that Overwatch desperately needed. Unfortunately, none of these changes ended up going into the live game. This was a questionable decision and something I consider to be a bit of an oversight. But this new form of update piqued my interest and, at least for the time being, brought me back to the game. A few days later, the devs threw another curveball on April Fool's Day 2021. On top of the traditional googly-eyed antics, they released a comically balanced experimental card with absolutely bonkers changes from Flying Reaper and Aimbot Soldier to Tank Mei and Ball-only form Wrecking Ball. Most of the changes were completely silly and entirely broken, but it was a stupid level of fun, and the kind of patch that shakes things up to where the game is completely unrecognizable. It was again the kind of different that a nearly 5-year-old game needs. The Joker card was then followed by the start of one of my favorite yearly Overwatch events, the Archives, thus sealing me into the game for the better part of a month. The Archives event has been around for a while, and they've added another few really cool skins, but this time around it seems streamers and content creators are on the grind to figure out ways of min-maxing the PvE game modes and going for world record scores and another break from the monotony. The recurring theme here is that the devs seem to have at least addressed some of my criticisms following BlizzCon Online and are bombarding the community with content, albeit minor content. They aren't necessarily keeping up with the popular changes that the community has asked, or rather begged for, but at the very least they're shaking the game up enough to make it feel fresh again. All of these changes and updates have led to me playing with big groups of my friends on both Nintendo Switch and on PC, and we've been having a blast both on and off stream. I've also finally got the inspiration to start working on a handful of Overwatch guide videos that I've honestly been holding off on since around January because I was so unsure of the direction the game was headed. It's also worth noting that some of the other much bigger content creators have started producing content for the game again, undoubtedly because there's finally something positive to talk about. I think the big key here is that there's been far less focus on the ranked element of the game. As someone who used to almost exclusively solo queue ranked, the past 6 months of the game have been profoundly frustrating. I was an off-tank player who watched most of my characters get dumpstered and lost a ton of SR because tanks just couldn't play the game in a DPS-dominated meta. It had me queuing DPS because the longer wait times were almost worth feeling like I was able to contribute to the game. It burned me out and led me to moving to other games like Apex and Valheim, and a lot of other streamers did as well. Sure, the big streamers would still queue some ranked, but you saw a lot more Pokemon Nuzlocks, the revival of the decade-old survival game Rust, and people dropping into Apex and Warzone for variety streams. The first quarter of the year looked pretty not great for the Overwatch community, and despite the current balanced state of the game being the best it's been in a while, the reality is the player base is still shrinking, and some content creators are still retiring from the game altogether. And that's why I think that Overwatch going forward, at least for the general community, is going to become far less competitive until the sequel. It's pretty clear the devs are starting to balance the live game for what they want Overwatch 2 to look like, and if you're a ranked player, that's going to be very, very frustrating. The changes are likely to be pretty big in some categories, seeing how team play is probably going to shift to a 5v5 format in Overwatch 2. But the devs have also made it clear that they're willing to put some craziness into the game in order to keep things fresh for the time being, and if they keep doing that, it's going to be pretty healthy for the current Overwatch community as a whole. The biggest takeaway of all of this is that right now is a great time to play Overwatch with groups of friends and to experiment playing the game on different platforms. If you're a PC player, try it on console to see how insanely different the game feels. If you're a console player and have a PC, give it a go to start honing your skills for the sequel. But this game, like many others this year, feels best when it's played more casually with friends, especially with the new experimental cards being churned out and the game currently hitting its stride with the workshop modes. I'm not saying the ranked ladder is completely dead in Overwatch 1. If you have a friend to duo with and you're absolutely focused on climbing, ranked still has a player base and you can get sweaty. The caveat is, there are likely a huge number of balance changes in the pipeline for the future that could completely reshape the game and might make your grind significantly more difficult. Additionally, the ranked matchmaking is about as bad as it's ever been, and the inflation of different ranks has caused a lot of them to plateau. The result is that you end up playing with a lot of the same people over and over and over again and growing at the same rate. So climbing takes a lot longer unless you're just massacring your rank. As for solo queuing ranked, I absolutely cannot recommend it. To me, the game doesn't feel like it's in a place where that sort of thing would be any kind of fun right now. The solo ranked community has its saltier moments these days, and the atmosphere just feels stuffy. But that's obviously just my opinion. So should you play Overwatch in 2021? I think the game is still super enjoyable, even though it's almost 5 years old. It's the best time to play this game casually with big groups of friends, or at the time of this recording, get a group of 4 together to challenge the PvE modes in the archives. If the Overwatch devs continue to shake things up with wild experimental cards and dump content onto us, the hype for the sequel will keep building and the future of the game will be very bright. In my opinion, Overwatch is the most fun it's been in months, and if you're like me and have taken a break for a while, it's not a bad time to come back to it for a bit.
But what do you guys think? Have you tried any of the new patches? Are you completely burnt out on Overwatch as well? Am I way too critical of Overwatch as a whole? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a like so that other people can enjoy it as well. And if you want to see more content, subscribe to my channel. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday right here on YouTube and upload new videos weekly. Thank you so very much for watching, and until next time, cheers.